Hello guys, Russia does not want peace. Russia wants war. Russia wants more wars in more countries around the world. And despite all the efforts that Donald Trump and JD Vance make to describe the so-called success of the negotiations process, even the representatives of the Russian delegation to Saudi Arabia confirm they do not see any option for a ceasefire, at least until 2026. And here, as a Ukrainian, I say that if sanctions are not lifted, by 2026, Russian economy can collapse, and then Russian military, and then the Russian Federation itself, and of course the Putin's regime. And I like this plan. Our task in such context is to remain determined and united. And in this video, I want to explain to you more why Russia does not want or actually cannot afford a ceasefire, and also why it decided to pretend that they want to negotiate and that something can be achieved. Actually tricking Trump, but not tricking Ukraine. So let's discuss all of these important issues. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, the only working peace plan, subscribe, we will discuss all of that on the channel. You know, when I want to travel to a faraway country, I ask people who live there about the things I need to take, about the weather, maybe some other advice. If I want to buy something, let's say a gadget that my neighbor has, I ask my neighbor about that gadget to understand what I need to know, what I need to check. And I do not understand why people, politicians, military experts, diplomats never listen to what Ukrainians say about Russia and the Russian need for war. Because actually, even before the start of Donald Trump's election campaign, where he concentrated a lot of his attention on the end of the Russian war in Ukraine, on a ceasefire, on the negotiations, we were saying, unfortunately, it is impossible. Even if Trump is a Russian asset, or even if he is not, Putin does not want peace. He cannot afford it. He needs war for the security of his regime. He needs war because millions of Russian people are involved in the military industry, in the army, and most importantly, they explain the majority of their problems, economic problems, cultural problems, this very bad level of life with this Western interference. They have an eternal enemy that they want to fight with. So no matter how hard Trump wants to please Putin's ego or whatnot, this will not work out. But at the same time, Russia needs this negotiation process to cause some serious reputational troubles to the White House and many people engaged in this ceasefire peace talks. Guys, to understand the essence of the Russian war in Ukraine, do watch my new video on my new channel where I speak about my personal experiences during the blackouts. And maybe this is the most personal video ever. And it's not simple to watch because it was not simple for me to share, but I think it's very important for the deep understanding of the situation. Please subscribe to that channel, watch the video and share it. So why did Putin agree on this fake negotiations process? Because he wants to create an atmosphere where Trump is seen as his collaborator, because he uses this prolonged process of negotiations that will lead to nothing, because the intelligence proves that Putin is actually preparing for an offensive on 3 Ukrainian regions, Kharkiv, Sumy, and Zaporizhia. And in this context, he will simply deny all the offers coming from the White House, humiliating, obviously, openly humiliating Trump, but Trump will keep pretending nothing happened. And as these talks continue, this legitimizes Putin, because it demonstrates that despite his constant attacks on Ukrainian cities. And to tell you the truth, the number of drones that target Ukraine grew tremendously since the start of this so-called negotiation process. And if it all happens in the context of attacks on Ukraine, on the murdering of Ukrainian children, Trump is seen as a collaborator of Putin. All these war crimes do not prevent normal diplomacy, and this isolation of Russia that was very just, that was very logical during the 3 years of their war crimes is broken. This is very, very unprofessional from the American side. And you know, after this Signal Gate and other stuff, I'm not surprised. They simply do not know how to start negotiations with normal politicians, let alone with professional KGB agents. So right now we have Russia that is not prepared for any ceasefire, that openly undermines any offers and humiliates Trump. Compare that to Ukraine, when even on pretty bad conditions we were prepared for a ceasefire, we agreed on a ceasefire, and Russia offered what? That's actually funny. Ceasefire on energy infrastructure, but they don't follow this rule, even though it is more of their problem because we've destroyed the great majority of their oil refining industry central for the collapsing Russian economy. And then they were prepared for a ceasefire in the Black Sea, but then also denied it, forgetting one very important fact. We have already destroyed the majority of the Russian Black Sea fleet. Most of their warships are scrap metal on the bottom, and the rest, the leftovers, escaped to Novorossiysk, which is the Russian port where they actually belong. We have destroyed the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. But even in this context, not good for Ukraine and quite beneficially for Russia, they do not agree on a ceasefire, and they speak openly about that. Karasin was that representative in Saudi Arabia who said, we don't see any opportunity until sanctions are lifted. But I am sorry, guys. Russian troops must leave Ukraine. That's the easiest way to get sanctions lifted. Years after that, of course. And I'm really happy that with this weakness of Trump, with his love for dictators, we see that the majority of these SWIFT connected banks are sanctioned by the European Union. And I'm super happy that they do not plan to lift sanctions, even if Trump will keep working on that. So right now, the plan of Putin is to drag as long as possible this imitation of the negotiation process and to keep killing Ukrainians together with Trump, to prevent new White House administration from delivering new weapons to Ukraine, sharing intelligence, to cause all possible troubles to allies, and at the same time to pretend that they are still talking. Honestly, I don't know whether Trump is a Russian asset or he is very unprofessional, but the very starting point of these negotiations, he lost because he promised everything the Kremlin dictator wanted and literally lost all of his cards, if I'm using Trump's language. And right now, the American president does not have many options. One, of course, would be the smartest, is to understand that Putin is bluffing, that Putin is using him, and to actually strengthen the sanction, to aid Ukraine better, and to defeat Russia, and to, I don't know, claim that he is the great victor. I don't think it's likely. The second one is to try and push Ukraine to surrender, to blame Ukraine that, Ukrainians are too active in that desire to survive. He tried it at the very beginning, and this Oval Office humiliation was a peak of the situation, but Trump failed, and he saw the real support of people, American people, European people, Australian, African people that support Ukraine, that support justice. and he realized it's just like simply impossible to blame Ukrainians, because like during these 3 years of war, people saw enough and people know that Russia is the aggressor. And an important role is played here by the EU countries, by France, by the United Kingdom, by Germany, by the Baltic countries, by Denmark, many countries who very openly stated Russia is to blame, Ukraine must be supported, and Putin is a war criminal. And this determination, this strong position actually made Trump feel lost. And at this moment, he does not know what to do, because Putin wants to push more out of him. He sees weaknesses of Donald. Europe and Ukraine is not prepared to surrender. And our task, Ukrainian task, is very simple, and you know it, to defeat and demilitarize Russia, and we are working on that. Remember to join me on X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Discord. Check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. If you go on some places where you can demonstrate your support for Ukraine, trust me, there are lots of good items there, and we are very grateful for this display of support. It is very important right now, so please remember to share these videos on your social media platforms if you share my opinion. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Remember to subscribe to another civilian channel where I share my daily videos. I will leave a link in the comments below. But most importantly, thank you for being friends of Ukraine. Thank you for buying me coffee, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. And thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!